Okay, so this is Matt. Matt is my friend
Hello.
from work. He and I work together. We're friends through a mutual friend who lied to him and told him that what we do is a great industry.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
Yeah. So, I mean, previously, before you got into all this, you were a mechanic, correct? You worked at a
Yeah,
dealership or just a
yeah.
regular shop?
Dealership, which, come to find out is one of the scammiest things anyone can ever get into.
It really is. I've got a couple friends who are mechanics, and they all say the same thing. Is that most dealerships just have you, they make you pay for like the top tier mechanics there, and then they just have like the lube techs do all the work.
Yep, they're not lying.
Yeah.
And then, when all that money goes to someone else, it kind of screws over the little guy.
Yep. And on top of that, you're not getting the attention to detail that you're paying for, so it's kind of begs the question of why even bother going to a dealership in the first place, you know?
Yeah. Uh, to this day, I still question that myself. Um, Especially when, other than warranty work.
So obviously, this industry is not. I mean, the industry itself isn't bad.
No, no, by all means, it's not.
It's just the company that we work for doesn't do a great job of rewarding hard work or even work in general.
Following through with their
Following through with their
promising.
promises and yeah, all that good stuff. Did we finish? Oh, bumper. We got the
Yeah,
bumper.
there's somewhere, probably in a crevice somewhere. I don't even see any
I mean, I
dirt
guess it
spots on
just
them.
says bumper. It doesn't necessarily have to be the rear bumper, right?
Right, yeah, up
Yeah.
right here. Come on, it's on the bottom
There
left.
we go. That's how you get paid in this job.
Yeah.
um,
All right.
Oh, this is cool. So I do like the time lapses that they do when you complete it. So this is just me, and then you pop in out of nowhere. um,
Ah,
so here's a good question. What is your favorite job that you've ever worked, Matt?
favorite job. Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, so how many jobs have you had, right? Let's start there and go from there.
Let's see. Are we just talking like companies, or are we talking actual jobs
Like
held?
actual, well, yeah, let's talk
Because I've
companies. I was gonna say
I've
like, oh,
been
actual jobs, but team,
yeah.
you have different jobs every day, so
Yeah.
yeah.
So I was at Walmart, 2017. Did remodeling there. That was actually kind of fun.
Gotcha.
Um, Left there because their position ended. Ended up going to a smaller steel mill,
Okay.
like a coating place for like, oh, what are those things called? For the life of me, I can't think of the name right now. Um,
So anyway,
but it
right after
was
Walmart, you went somewhere else.
yeah, that was good. Money was good, but when you work 7 months straight, no days off, 12s, 14s, and 16s,
Yeah, you burn out pretty quick.
yeah, I got burnt out on that. Then managed to get back to Walmart as automotive. Left there,
Let's
went
put a
and pulled
number to that real
conveyors.
quick here. How old were you when you got into automotive professionally?
Professionally,
Yeah,
uh, 21, 22.
21, 22. Okay.
Yeah, but been into cars since like 2010, so about 14 years, 14 years old,
Yeah, I gotcha.
13. If my math is lining up,
Yeah, right in high school
which
there.
yeah, freshman year of high school
Yeah.
is when I really got into it. But
I have actually not been a car guy for very long. It wasn't until I think I graduated high school that I really started getting more and more into it. A couple of my good friends were like really big into vehicles and auto repair and things like that. I just never had the interest in it. It wasn't until I bought my first car, which was a 95 Ford Explorer, which required a lot of maintenance, as it turned out.
yep, they always do.
Yeah, that's when I started kind of getting more and more into car repair. And I shouldn't say that I'm necessarily into cars more. I have an appreciation for the craft, I should say.
when you go through all the struggles and stuff like that that people do on a daily basis on someone else's vehicle, you really understand, like, hey, this is it's not fun.
It's work. It's work. And
Yeah.
especially, you know, if you're doing repairs on good cars, right? Where parts come off nice and and you
You
know,
don't live somewhere where 90% of the time there's salt and ice on the ground.
right,
Yeah.
right. It's definitely a lot more fulfilling in that regard, but yeah,
Yeah.
especially in our area here where everything is just rusted over. You're putting
Yep.
far more torque than you really should be doing, you know. So I guess another good question here is keeping on with the whole workflow of things. Like what is your end all here, right? Like we all work for a purpose, right? Especially in the United States. We don't just work to work, right? We all this isn't Europe where you get like 3 months off a year. Right? We all work towards something. And it's usually a lesser version of what we're doing or what we're comfortable with, you know?
Yeah.
Like, for a lot of our people in our industry, the end all is the API route, right? You go and get your
Yep.
API so that you can just do a lot more reporting, so that you have a lot more ass time, so you're not climbing up and down structures as much, right? It's just a
Yeah.
lot more of a relaxing end all to it, you know? Like the CUI manager, Chuck.
Yep.
His whole thing is that he doesn't have a plan for retirement anymore because he says I can die in this chair. It's like
Right.
I can do this job till the day I die as long as I don't get senile. You know, it's something that he can just do forever. So I guess like for me, right, the whole thing for me is doing the YouTube channel here and doing the books, right, my book series. Is that if I can just get enough money to where I can buy my own house, I don't mind working till I die, but I just want to be able to do a job that I enjoy, you know,
I
just a small
completely
job. If
agree
I
with
could be a
that.
waiter in an Italian cafe, right, that would be good enough for me. Just
Right.
something a little bit more laid back. Doesn't matter what it is, just as long as I have something.
Just a 9 to 5 to get you through the day. That way you're not at home
Exactly.
100%
Just
of the
hit
time.
32 hours a week so that I got enough money to eat and take a vacation, you know. Nothing extravagant, but just hop on the bike and do some bike packing, you know.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. But that's kind of my end all here. Well, what about you?
I guess it would be the same, or to a degree would be the same. I guess my end all would be just to be able to afford the atrocious price tag of car parts and just go racing for a living.
Yeah, just hit some circuits around the country.
Oh,
Just
hell
do
yeah.
tours.
I would love to do that.
Yeah, I mean that is something that you could eventually get into. I mean, you've got the know-how for it. Like you said, you've just got to get through the car parts and
Which is which is the worst part, especially with all the EPA cracking down and
yep.
prices of everything quite literally going through the roof.
Which actually, I don't know if you've seen, GPU prices are down considerably now. They're
Yes,
affordable again, Matt. I can afford
yeah,
one.
I know. I saw there was a video that I saw. Someone had found a 3070 Ti for like $500,
Yep,
brand new.
yep. I was just looking at that the other day. You can get it on Amazon.
Oh man,
Yeah,
that's see that's the other struggle too because unfortunately all the hobbies and things that I want to do, I'm sure a lot of people can probably relate to this. It's just so expensive.
yeah, it's so up there now. And that's, to kind of get a little political here for a minute, that is the biggest uh, deficit to the American system here, is that we are just wage slaves
Oh
at this
definitely.
point.
Oh definitely.
And it's gotten to the point where hobbies should be free. I mean,
I
at
would
least to some degree, right?
yes.
Whereas now they're just so expensive. Even painting, right? Painting is ridiculously expensive nowadays.
Yes.
And that should be one of the easiest things, number one, to get into, and number two, to keep going with. And so now we're just working to work. And like, if you
Yep.
don't enjoy your job, I mean, that goes right into mental health right there,
Yep.
which is our next segment, but we'll get there in a second.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I know, your favorite category.
Oh yeah.
But Yeah, I mean that's especially for you. I mean, so how much is there in terms of like tours and shows and circuits? And I'm not too
Uh,
familiar with that walk of. I mean, obviously I know some of the bigger ones like Grid Life, but
yeah, Grid Life is a massive one.
I know there's a bunch of car shows and stuff that you can always do. Not, I mean, they don't necessarily pay, but
No, I mean there are some of them that do pay.
right.
There are some of them that do pay really well, especially if you get sponsorships. There we go. But the whole car show, I mean, I'm into it, but I'm not. That's not really me. I don't. I'm not. I'm not the type to build something just to
Just to show
have
it
it.
off. You
Yeah.
want to
Well, I
actually
mean,
enjoy it.
yes. I mean, I'll show it off on a track trying to put down my best time,
Right,
but
right. Now,
I'm
I
not.
guess that's not quite what I meant, but yeah, is that show up? You're not there to just pull up and open up the hood and let everybody peek at it. You know?
Right. I
Yeah,
mean,
you
don't get
actually
me
want to
wrong.
enjoy it and show off what your labors can do.
Yes. And I mean, don't get me wrong, sitting down, hanging out with friends in a parking lot, bullshitting for a couple hours before you go home or do
Yeah, that's a
something
different
that
story.
doesn't happen in this country, like Mexico, and do some racing. I am down for it. But the oh, what's the word for it? The at least the gaming terms of it, the meta right now
Yeah.
is how much money you spend on making your vehicle look the flashiest. Which that's been the meta for a while, in my opinion,
To a certain
but that's
degree.
not me.
Yeah.
There was a point in time where whoever had the fastest car in the neighborhood was hot shit,
Yep.
right? Now it's, oh, this dude has $8,000 just in wheels itself on his $2,000 fucking F-150. It's like
So
he's hot shit.
I'm gonna
That's
trail
garbage.
off into sort of a different aspect of this. And I'm really curious to get your thoughts on this one actually. Do you think this culture change is representative of the auto industry overcomplicating vehicles? Because that's kind of how I feel about it. Is, you know, if you look at the cars from the 70s and 80s, right? Those were cars that really anybody could just pick up and work on, right? They were nothing super complex. Like,
Yeah, they had like 3 wires total.
yeah, I mean, it's like just a short story. My buddy Gregor came over one day, and he was going to help me change out the alternator, and I had never done it before. That's why I wanted his help on it.
Mhm.
And so he came over, and we sat down and we bullshitted for like 3 hours straight. And then a storm was rolling in. It's like, let's get out there and swap it while we still got the good weather. And it ended up taking 20 minutes. It was 3 bolts. That was it. We just unbolted the thing and it was good to go. And whereas when I had to do it on my Malibu, oh my god, I had to take the front bumper off to take the headlight out just to reach the alternator, and it was not 3 bolts.
No, God no. It's
Yeah,
like
I don't
they're
remember exactly what went into that one, but it was way more than what it needed to be.
yes. So to go back to your
My original point.
yeah,
Yeah. That thing I wanted to talk about so badly.
yes, yes and no. I do want to say just for the sheer fact of if someone's dedicated enough to their hobby or their passion, they'll get through it, right?
Right.
So I agree that the automotive industry is making it a lot harder to modify and really work on your own stuff because they want to have their certified and blah 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 technicians to do it themselves, do blah 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 blah, ensure that the
Right.
blah, right? But at the same time, there are some manufacturers that, I mean, granted, their designing and engineering isn't the best. They're still thinking of the automotive industry in terms of the aftermarket. Like Subaru, unfortunately, with their STI gone, and so they have a EV platform. The new Supra, which is basically just another BMW, and doesn't look good in my opinion, which is probably a controversial statement, but whatever.
I'm gonna have to cut that out, Matt. You know, I can't have can't have hate
No
speech on
controversy.
YouTube here. All right.
But there still are companies that are looking out for the enthusiasts and giving affordable and
So I guess it's not so much about affordability, or it's
entry
more,
level.
cars are more complex to work on these days, and so I feel like that's why a lot of people have gotten away from working on their own vehicles, is because it's gotten to the point where if you had to change an alternator back in the 80s, you know, that was a 30-minute job. You could just do
Pop
that.
the hood, take the belts off, you take the alternator out.
Exactly. Whereas now, that's like a 3-hour job. And so it's, who has the time for that? Especially as wages are lower, work hours are longer. You know, you get home from work and you just, I mean, you know, you don't want to work
Oh,
on your
God,
car
yeah.
after working a 12-hour shift.
No, mine's
Especially when you're only making 10 bucks an hour. And
that $10 makes what the price to get home, and that's about it. You can't afford the
Exactly.
parts that you need to go into the vehicle.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Unfortunately, that's yeah.
and that's kind of what I was getting at there, is that I think that's why there's been such a dip off of people doing DIY work, is because it's just not feasible anymore. You know, it's not something that you just do. You know,
For fun.
you get home, you work your 9 to 5, you get home, you knock out some maintenance, right? It's, you have to spend your weekend, which you should be doing, or you should be
Recuperating?
relaxing on. Yeah, just recovering from the work week.
Yeah.
You know, I hate to blame women for this, but no, I mean, truth be told though, the idea of having a dual income household has really wrecked a lot of that. In that, it's definitely not a woman thing. Just to put that on record here,
In
right?
general.
In general,
It's just in general.
it's perfectly fine to have the woman be the breadwinner of the house and have the husband stay at home. In fact, I would vastly prefer that.
Oh, hell yeah.
Because not just from the standpoint of being able to stay at home, but if the man of the house still wants to be the man of the house, it would be vastly more efficient for me to be the stay-at-home dad, because, you know, I'm, number one, better at cooking. Number two, I'm able to do a lot more of the DIY stuff, right?
Yep.
There's just a lot more that I could do from working from home as opposed to going to the office every day,
Right.
you know? And even then, like, there's no good way to put this, but me being the better parent between myself and my wife, it would just make a lot more sense for me to be the stay-at-home parent, in just about every regard that you could look at. Because, I mean, she's a better cleaner, sure, but at the end of the day, I would much rather have so many other things done around here
Right.
than just a good vacuum, you know?
I completely agree with the whole fact of staying at home, getting everything done, the whole DIY. Like, I can make a good fucking breakfast, right?
Right.
You want a fucking sandwich or two to take to work? Please fucking do. I'll fucking get it.
Yeah, I will be the movies, you know, stay-at-home dad, where you come downstairs and there's plates of waffles and fresh cut fruit and everything.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll even throw on some fucking baggy gray sweats. Throw
Yep,
on
yep.
my best looking apron.
Really slut
Whole nine
yourself out in
yards.
the kitchen,
Oh,
you know?
Definitely. Oh, honey, you made $200,000 this year? That's incredible.
That's incredible.
Here, do you need a back massage?
Well, it's so much less than that, too. Like, if my wife could just bring home $60K a year, right? You know, I could do some remote work that makes something similar, and we could just not even have a change in our income. But for me to take this much of a pay cut, because she only makes maybe $35K a year, for me to take this much of a pay cut, it's just not feasible.
Right.
So it's a lot of what I'm good at going to waste. Because, and truth be told, I don't feel like I'm a very good inspector. And don't you, you know, if you ever tell anybody, especially any of my 69 nice followers, right, I'll deny it every time. But it is to the fact where, like, a lot of what I do in this industry is just professional assistant, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what I've always marketed myself as. And I've done very well with it up until the past couple of years here, where they've tried to shoehorn me into positions that, number one, I don't feel comfortable in, and
Yep.
number two, I don't want to be in, you know.
Yep.
And
I
a lot of
completely
that
agree
is
with
because
that
they
one.
refuse to train up guys who really show that promise.
Or or even keep people around long enough with
Right.
competitive benefits and pay to really incentivize people staying and making
Right.
that position actually worth it.
And one of the weirdest things is that they say, sure, you could go over to the company next door, but, it's a worse company. You're going to end up hating it there. All they
Yep.
do is just pay more. And it's like, you need to understand something about why I'm here.
Right.
I am definitely not here for the happy times and the yuck 'em ups, You
Right.
slash my 401k and I'm walking.
Yep.
It's like if I weren't already planning on killing myself before retirement, that might mean a little bit more to me.
Uh. Yep.
Yeah, too
I
real,
could.
too real. I know.
Mm.
But
Oh man.
yeah, I mean the idea of getting back to what I was talking about, the idea of having a dual income household is just ridiculous. I mean, it's one of those raise the minimum wage things.
Yep.
It sounds great initially, and initially it does amazing things for you and your family. Right? When you go from making 60K a year to 120K a year, that's a massive
Oh yeah.
growth in
Oh yeah.
income, and you can really, and that's what we saw in the 70s when all these people were all of a sudden buying vacation homes and had multiple vehicles and sending their kids off to college for whatever degrees they wanted, right?
Yep.
You saw a lot more of that right then and there because there was such an explosion of wealth, and it had nothing to do with anything other than the fact that all of a sudden people were doubling their income. And we've done nothing but reap the consequences of that since then.
Hmm.
Is that now you have to have a double income family just to make ends meet, or at least one person has to make a
A
six-figure salary.
substantial, yeah, a
Right.
substantial amount just to afford a basic
What
living.
should be basics. I got a weird question here for you, Matt. Why do we
Hmm.
still have to buy food? That
You
is the
know.
weirdest thing. Like, don't get me wrong. I understand for like your steaks, your Cheetos, right?
Yes.
But like ground beef, chicken breast, right? Like all the shit that's cheapest on the market anyway, right? That's just a little weird for me that we're still
Yep.
having to buy milk, right? That we're still having to pay for baby formula and diapers and things that we all know we need. It's
Right.
really strange to me that we still have to buy basic groceries.
Yeah. I mean,
Because the whole point of capitalistic food production is that we should be getting it to its cheapest natural cost, which
right.
it is. Don't get me wrong. Across the world, we have some of the cheapest food,
Yes.
but it's just very strange that we're still having to pay for it. If there
Yeah.
were going to be a government program that I would happily sign off my tax money for, it would be paid for groceries.
Right. And you know what? You know what the crazy part is? We're paying enough in taxes for, let's say, our roads and whatnot that arguably absolute dog shit.
Right.
At that point, we're paying taxes for what? It just to go in someone else's pocket? Use those fucking taxes. Everyone, bring back the good old milkman. Let him go house to house.
God, I would
Bread,
love.
milk, eggs, and cheese. Every single
Can we
two,
talk
maybe
about how
3 times a
crazy it
week.
is that we have reinvented the milkman with
Yep.
Instacart?
Yep. Yep.
Like that if you say it right here right now, right? Like, "Oh, let's bring back the milkman." I'll be like, "Okay, boomer," right? But
Right.
I spend an extra $7 to have all my groceries delivered,
Delivered. Hand delivered, right?
hand delivered
And
and put in your fridge for you, right? Oh, that's revolutionary.
no, no, it's been around. It's
Yeah,
come
it's
and
like,
gone
no,
already.
we've just reinvented the wheel here is all.
Right. And I guess the perk to that is you don't have to deal with people, right?
Right.
Especially the crazy people. I can mm, I could really get behind that one. Because people, now that
People
social
do be
media
crazy
and
out there. They really do
everyone,
be wildin'.
yeah, I mean, everyone's fighting for something, whether or not it's for them or if it's for someone else,
Yep.
and they think their opinion is end all be all, and they want to shove that in your face until you just don't
Until you
want to deal
agree.
with people anymore. And it's unfortunate that society is going that way because there was a there are people that are still like that.
You
That
know,
you can
I don't want to
disagree
sound
with someone and still be
I don't
on
want to
good
sound like an
terms.
absolute old man here, but I really do believe that it's because of social media.
Oh,
The whole
definitely.
aspect of being able to talk and share your opinion without getting the shit smacked out of you.
Right. Or
I
get
feel like
put
that's
on.
really, really holding this world back.
I mean, whether or not a fight breaks out or you end up on the local news because you disagreed with someone's blah blah blah,
Yeah.
right? It's like, no, that's why? Why is that even a thing?
Why is that
Like,
even relevant? Right.
right. Like, at what point did we go from your opinion doesn't really bother me to if you don't agree with me 100% of the time, you're gonna
I'm going to
be a
argue that
fascist and
point, Matt, because
communist.
that has always been a thing, right? Think about the kings and queens of old, right? If you
Yes.
did anything that was not what they deemed appropriate, you were just killed on the spot.
Okay,
Right.
but here's the thing. We, as of right now, us two have not been a part of anything like that.
This is true.
And this country has not been a part of that since a long, long time ago. Right? At least at least for us, right?
Right.
So why is it all of a sudden I'm going to say all of a sudden because it's been a long time since any sort of almighty ruler has been a part of this country, right? Why
Yes,
all of a
I do
sudden?
agree with that to a point. Eh, if we get into more, I don't want to say colonial America, but I would say the 1800s, right? Let's
Right.
talk about the 1800s here for a moment, right? We had the plantations, we had the large fields. It was a sort of, I don't want to say call it feudalism or anything like that, but it was something along those lines. In which case, if you were a primary landowner, right,
Mm-hmm.
you had a lot more power in your vicinity or in your state than really anybody else. And it
Yeah.
was because you were a producer. And those people definitely ran the show for a lot of
Oh yeah.
aspects.
Well,
Yeah.
the, someone I think it was Bill Burr. No, I think it was George Carlin that said this. This country has been bought and paid for a long time ago,
Yep.
and it it's just been gone ever since, and we have no say about it.
Yep. I 100% agree with that. But unfortunately, that is just kind of how we've set up society.
Yep.
And you know, the meme comes around every once in a while. It's like, you know, humans were meant to be walking through forests barefooted, eating homemade cheese and wine. The fuck is a credit score, right?
Yeah.
And God, does that one just resonate with my core,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like one of the vastly most important aspects of our society, and nobody can explain what a credit score is,
Oh God,
right?
no.
And that is just one of the craziest things to me, is that why we know better at this point, right? We know that this is all fucked up, right? That's no secret here, but nobody is like pushing to change it. I think one of the greatest issues with modern culture is the amount of laziness and compliance that goes along with it. Is
Mm-hmm.
that nobody. It's kind of a weird thing to say out loud, but nobody's willing to die for what they believe in anymore. You know?
No.
100%. Nothing is worth your life anymore.
Mm-mm.
And I don't know, man. I think we're kind of coming around to the opposite of that statement because, you know, millennials just don't really give a shit about themselves anymore. And Gen
And
Zs
they're
are
willing to die
arguably
just for anything.
worse. So
It's
I
like
think we're getting to the point
testing.
here where we're realizing that our lives just really aren't worth that much. And we're
God,
going to
no.
start dying for it again. I think I don't know when it will happen, but I do think we are on the cusp of a revolution here in the near future.
Oh, definitely.
I think we will see it in our lifetime. Regardless of whether or not we'll be young enough to still fight in it is a different story, but
Right.
yeah.
And you know what? Especially when this country, as good as it can be, doesn't give a shit about us.
Yeah.
Especially with the moves that they've been making lately. And,
And let's not get
ideals.
too deep into that, Matt, you know?
Oh, no, definitely not. But
yes,
but
I do
believe,
understand. They are eroding away at a lot of liberties and a lot of freedoms. And, I mean, one thing in particular, and this isn't really a divisive statement here, did you know that the police don't have to read you your Miranda rights anymore when they arrest you?
Seriously?
Yeah, that got tossed away a couple months ago during the BLM riots.
Are you...
Yeah, and it was because cops didn't want to have to deal with having to read each individual rioter a list of their rights. It was just more time efficient to just book them.
Oh,
And
man.
too many criminals were getting off with serious crimes because police officers weren't able to read them their rights or what have you. And while I understand the thought of like, whoa, why am I tall? Well, I definitely understand the thought of, like, we don't want a murderer to go loose because a cop made a mistake. It seems like a really weird thing to get rid of a right.
Yeah.
To benefit the cops.
Yeah. That doesn't
Yeah.
sit right with me at all.
Exactly. But, I mean, that's kind of where this country's going, is that it's getting to the point where it's so much easier to just get rid of people's liberties than it is to actually change something. Alright.
Which is terrifying.
Yeah, it really is. But anyway, to get back off the topic of politics here, let's talk about something that's very similar. Let's talk about mental health for a second here, because
we went from cars to that.
Yeah, I mean, a big thing that I wanted to talk about was I wanted to kind of move from how we're basically wage slaves and how difficult things are and how we don't have time to recuperate and how much that really stems into people's mental health now. Yeah, I don't know exactly how much you want to talk about it. I'm willing to talk a lot about mental health, especially as somebody who's kind of gotten past a lot of really, really dark points of who I am as a person. But I know specifically, like, even just the low wages, the long hours, the kind of dead-end job, right? At what point does that cross over into your mental health versus what's already been there, right? Like, how much do external factors affect you as a person?
Does
that make sense to you before we dive? Okay.
Yeah. So my interpretation of this is, I believe the mental health factors that were already there before any external factor just compounded by those external factors, right?
Yeah. Ooh, that's not what I wanted.
Session was closed.
Uh-oh.
Apparently
Connection timed out.
Yeah, let's get back on topic.
Yeah, let's just start back over with, so how much do these external factors really bother you, you know?
On their own, not very much, but when they start stacking up because of a lot of extra factors, work or bills or vehicles breaking, which
is a constant issue.
Yeah, well, I'm probably about to be going through that once again.
Really? For which one?
The truck. But again, when they're on their own, it's not bad, but once they start piling up and one thing is 100 things that you have to worry about, it gets bad.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I definitely understand that. I know a big thing for me is external stuff doesn't really bother me. And kind of like getting into, this is going to be kind of a weird conversation here, but getting into like my worst fears, right? It's losing control over my life, right?
Ooh, yeah.
And a big thing is like whenever I start feeling like things are being taken from me, right? It starts really derailing me as a person. And it can be something as simple as like, you know, a lot of the guys were giving me shit about the safety position. I didn't care about the safety position. Like I've mentioned it before, it's not even a pay increase.
Right.
It was probably a pay decrease, if anything. So I was never really sold on that one. Hold on.
Did you
Hold on.
find it?
I might have something here. Oh, I think I found it here, Matt. I think this grill was not totally cleaned. Oh yeah, the underbelly. Ah, now we're getting it. Now we're getting it. Alright, so now that we know it's all my fault. It is a lot of and it's strange being friends with people who also share in depression, because they seem to think that all depression is the same. And it's
God,
like,
no.
dude, don't beat yourself up over it. You know, not everything's your fault. And it's like, yeah, but some things are, and it's okay.
Right.
It's like, that's not the part that bothers me here. But to kind of get back to the position, the biggest thing that upset me was when they took my desk away in the bunker. And so now I don't have a place to go and sit down and work on stuff, or a place to plug in my laptop to charge, or even a place to just like eat my lunch. And like
Right.
that was a lot more upsetting to me than losing the position. Because like I said, the position was just a position. I didn't care too much about that aspect of it. Like, it would have been cool to get a company vehicle, but
Yeah, and not have
Yeah.
to worry about paying for gas. Oof.
Exactly. And they're like, oh, you know, you get to sit around more. And it's like, I think I'd sit around less as the safety guy.
Right.
It's like, let's talk about how much we sit in our daily job here, you know? As
Like,
here
you're
we
really-
are on
you're really
hour 8 of just
underestimating-
sitting in the vehicle, you know?
Right. Right. And yeah.
But like I said, a whole nother conversation.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that's like one of the biggest aspects for me. It's just whenever I no longer have control over situations, it really just eats at me to my core. Let's go power wash a dirt bike. I wonder if it'll pull
Okay.
you with me, or if I'm gonna have to reinvite you.
Oh, it pulled me with me.
Perfect.
Pulled me with you. There we go.
Now this is hard dirt here on this one, if I remember correctly. So let's really hit this hard together. I'll come on your side and we'll just blast. We should be able to knock this out super quick. But yeah, I mean, so that's kind of diving into more of like the end all for us, right? Is like, for me, getting away from being in somebody else's pocket, right?
Yeah.
Is opening up my own business, right? Where I no longer have to answer to somebody who definitely does not have my best interest in their mind, right? And so a lot more of that, especially in the industry that we work in, is that you are always under somebody's thumb,
Yeah.
and the amount of snakes that we have in the industry is just astronomical. And look at all this completion we're getting here. This is the serotonin boost I needed for the day.
Right. Right.
We're already at 97, 98%, 99%. I know.
Okay, now it's 100.
I guess we had... Hold on. I might have figured something out here.
So I
Let's-
just hit escape and saw the
Yeah,
all
and
of
then
the-
the job completed. I was like, is that
Yeah.
what we did wrong? Let's just find out here. I'm gonna wait till you get here.
Okay, 99%. Okay, so birdhouse stand and doghouse roof.
I'll get the birdhouse stand. Since that was supposed to be mine anyway. There we go. I got the stand.
Okay, doghouse.
You
I
missed
do
exactly
not-
one speck of dirt on the doghouse
it's
roof, you
one
son of a
speck.
bitch. So yeah, back to
there it
mental
is.
health. Yeah, so I guess we started talking about the control thing, right? It's just losing a grasp of what's going on around you. I mean, that's such a huge thing, and I guess the way I say it makes it sound a lot more vague, or generalized, I should say. But that is truthfully one of the biggest things for me. Is it's really hard for me when I start losing what little control I have over my life, you know?
Right.
And a big thing for me is, like, I hate Northwest Indiana with all my heart, right?
You're not the only one. I hate it too.
Most people do, right? And so when it comes down to it, my whole thing was like, I've always loved traveling because it gets me out of here.
Right.
you know?
And then you realize that this place is just sucking the ever-living shit out of your soul and doesn't
Right.
return any of it.
Right. There we go. Finally!
Yay!
Good God. Alright, on to the next job here. But yeah, kind of diving more into that direction. My plan was to always earn enough money and then move out of here, right?
Yep.
And then I'm actually kind of locked in where I am now. And I love my daughter, right? I love her to death. But that is the only reason I am still here, because my family has actually all moved out of this area. And
As
now
they
it's
should.
just me, the person who arguably hated this place the most, is still stuck here. And so that's a one semblance of control that I've just lost from my life, is that I cannot leave this area. And that's such a huge thing for me, because I would much rather be anywhere else. And truthfully, if it weren't for my daughter, I wouldn't even be in this country anymore. I would have moved to Italy probably about 3-4 years ago by now.
Yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't, just off the, like, top of this, I probably wouldn't move to another country, right?
Right.
Would I move states? Absolutely.
And I mean, that was something I even thought about bringing up earlier. But I know in terms of the automotive industry, you're not going to find a stronger, well, industry or producer or even variety in any other country than the United States.
Oh, no.
Yeah, just the amount of variety, aftermarket, and
Freedom we actually have.
I can't. The only word I can think of is clout, which is a word I have never used before. But just the.
I know what you're talking about. The recognition. And
Yeah, the admiration behind it, right? The fanfare behind it. The amount of people who adore the automotive variety and aftermarket work. Yeah, the following. Yeah, exactly. You're just not going to find anything greater than that in than the United States.
Never.
Yeah.
Because I don't know who did it first. Because I don't follow much of the F1 tour or anything like that, but I know the US started doing racing a lot, like a while ago, right?
Right.
As soon as
we could drive, the Americans were getting drunk and throwing the cars as fast as they could.
Yep. some hillbilly motherfucker. It just took it out and it's like, oh hey, dirt. Oh hey, I can go sideways really, really fast.
And
Let's
a little
make
bit of
this
a side
sport.
tangent. Have you ever watched like some of the earlier videos of like testing automotives and like just watching those guys go over bumps with no shocks on the vehicles whatsoever? And that is something that's really interesting about modern vehicles, is the amount of work that has gone into them, the evolution that's gone into it. And yet we still have Ford trying to create the weirdest shit possible.
You know what? As much shit as I give Ford for their stupidity, at least they're not bringing out an EV vehicle that has speakers for an exhaust that you can put to the tune of whatever you want, right? Dodge.
Do we want to talk about the Ford F-150 Lightning?
That
can tow for exactly 60 miles per charge.
Yeah, other than the fact that it's a piece of shit, sure, we can talk about it. The fact that I believe it should have been a supercharged V8 before anything else, and that Ford has had this decent motor platform with the Coyote and the Voodoo, which is the 5.2 that goes into the 350s, that they arguably can do a lot of stuff with, considering I think they're partnered, I think they're partnered with Garrett, or if they're Ford Warner, I don't remember exactly who, but they've got the turbos, they've got the company to make the turbos,
and that has been one of the weirder, like, I go back, so I am a firm believer that electricity is the way to go, not in the automotive industry. And that's a whole other conversation that I don't want to have with you. But specifically, I think cars and motorcycles, things like that, those are vanities, right? Those are things that should be toys. That should not be your primary mode of transportation, right? I think it's a little strange that the world has kind of geared, not the world, but the United States has geared itself more towards that. And we can get way, way more into that another time in a different recording or a stream or something. But to kind of keep on this track of automotive stuff, is it's very strange to me that Ford, who has done a very surprisingly good job in bringing up MPG without really switching over to more green technology, right? Just the building the lighter frames, cutting out a lot of the curb weight, switching over to a lot of plastic interior, and just doing everything they can to make their vehicles lighter. And then on top of that, just switching over to more turbos to get the extra oomph. That way they can cut back on the steel for the engines.
Yep. And
it's really weird that Ford is now trying to lead the domestic market in electric. It's like, you have figured out the best way already.
Yeah. But the fact that Ford, at least out of the big three, right? Ford, Chevy, and Dodge.
Right.
Ford got the jump on it before Dodge did.
Right.
So the fact that they're already into it, they're learning all their mistakes already. They're learning where they can improve and what could go wrong. Dodge, I mean, they just had the concept with the Charger.
Right.
So there's, at least to my knowledge, there is nothing that Dodge is ahead of for Ford. So they're still up there leading the automotive industry in that class.
I would argue Ford
Tesla.
leads in technology across the board. I think Ford has done an amazing job with innovation and bringing out the new, interesting technologies. I mean, it's like the Burger King approach to fast food, where you just release a bunch of crazy, weird shit that literally nobody has ever asked for. Yeah.
See what sticks, you keep it, and then see where everything else goes, or how you can improve it if you want to keep it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, especially when you have that kind of money to play with, right?
And especially when you're going to be pumping out a new model of the same car every single year anyway.
Right.
That is how you do it. You improve.
Yep. And, I mean, Chevy, don't get me wrong, for as much garbage as I give, or as much trash talk as I give Chevy and their LS and their outdated model of motor and blah, blah, blah. It's good. It does its job. There's a huge aftermarket for it, and Chevy knows this. They've known this for a long, long time. And the fact that... Why am I walking so slowly?
Are you crouched? You know, you can sprint and run it like Sonic speed.
Yeah, I noticed
it's
that.
It's like, yeah, I hit the sprint button like in the last zone, and I was like, holy shit. These guys can move.
These are the most fit pressure washing people ever.
But yeah, back to what you were saying about Chevy. As much shit as you give them.
Yeah, like they understand what they're doing, and at least to my knowledge, they haven't fully announced. No, I think they did. I think they did announce something along those lines for an EV vehicle for like the Camaro, or just flat out cancel the Camaro, because I think I saw a video. I don't know how accurate or truthful it is, because it's the internet and people lie.
And everybody comes to the BigMayonnaze channel for their most intuitive car technology information. But, you know,
I saw something that the Camaro might not even be around in 2024.
No, it's really falling off here. One of the biggest issues that Chevy has really dealt with here is that they are just overpricing everything. And it's the idea of they're making quality vehicles, but at a price.
Yep.
And when every vehicle is $70,000, you know, or more, it's kind of like, why would anybody even go for anything new?
Right.
Like, I really don't understand why people, like, I do now that there's a used car shortage and they've dropped the prices on a lot of newer models across the board.
That's still debatable,
yeah, but You get where I'm going with it, though,
Yeah,
right? Yeah. Where it's a lot more uniform in pricing. I mean, you'd have to be absolutely just total dirt brain to go and lease a vehicle now, especially with BMW and their per amenity pricing. You got to pay per month for whatever you want.
Yeah, because now everything's going subscription based, even your heated seats.
Yep. And that
Like,
is the worst thing that could have happened here.
Well,
I think we're going to see a lot more pushes for public transportation
Well,
after all this. I mean, that's
honestly,
mostly
I hope
just
so.
Europe
I wouldn't
now,
be.
but-
I would not complain about that, right?
Yeah, me
Like
neither.
if there's public transport that is consistent enough that takes you from one end to the other, I'm not talking just city, right?
Right.
Like there's public transport in Japan and Europe. that
China.
You can take
China leads the world in public transport.
Yeah.
They have, yeah. I mean, they have the Beijing to Hong Kong bullet train, and it goes about. I think it's like a 3.5 hour ride, whereas by plane it's only like an hour and a half or something like that. But it's so much more efficient, and they have it going it leaves the station every 20 minutes.
Right.
And that's the kind of shit that we need to start getting on, because yes, our cities are a lot more spread out. And I personally think that you should have a car at home for more of a vanity purpose, or just around town trips. But I think the important thing here is that you should only have one car per family. And that's another conversation in and of itself. But we'll have to say that for the sequel to this, Matt. But
Yeah.
a bigger thing is like, God, we've been recording for so long already. I don't know how much more I can pack into this episode here. And this was supposed to be more about you than it was about political stances and public transport. And like, people eat this up, so I'm not complaining. But the idea is, I think the automotive industry should focus more heavily on a monthly rental car service, so that you can live wherever you want and you just take the train into whatever city. You pick up your rental car from there and you just go from there. I do think leasing is not a bad way to go, but do a month-by-month service where that's just what you need to get from the main city hub, the train hub, to wherever your individual manufacturing or office space would be. And then public transport within the city can take over from there.
And see, there already is something along those lines that you can do, right? So I don't know the name of it, but there is a company that
Yeah, it's like rideshare, right?
Yeah. Like that's all good and well until you don't live in a massive city.
But see, that's kind of what I was getting at with the whole idea of, I mean, okay, let's talk about this for a second here, Matt, okay? Every place I have ever been to has an enterprise lot, okay?
Yeah.
That is just, they have them, okay?
They're everywhere. It's
Yeah.
the Dollar General of fucking car rental places.
Exactly. And I think that should become a public service at this point. Rental cars should no longer be a privatized industry. I think that should just be something that's government mandated. And I think that would do well for the automotive industry as well, having government contracts for actual rental car services. I think that would be a great thing, especially for like companies like Ford that specialize in
Government vehicles.
government vehicles, right? Great fuel efficiency, low sticker price, and then at the end of the day, they're only good for 150,000 miles. But if you're just running a vehicle, just as a not necessarily a daily driver, but just you're picking up a car in the morning to get to wherever you're going,
Right.
that's not really your concern anymore. If the car breaks
Right.
down, they just swap it out. And I think that's the direction that we should be going for. And especially since we mentioned at the beginning of this video, how dealerships are really running things anyway, right? It's not like it's going to get any worse, man.
You know what? You can say that, and I'm sure it will.
It will, yeah. But
If there is a will, there is a way, and if there's room, it will happen.
it will happen. But, I mean, I truthfully think that is the better way to go for all of this. But that's just me, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
Matt, about you and your depression.
Oh, I forgot my name on here. Isn't that? Damn.
Isn't it?
Um.
Oh, yeah, you're
Yeah.
one mean stag. That's right. HeckinDepression. HeckinDepression on Twix. On Twix.
Twix.
Yeah, I'm a
mean,
YouTube
yeah.
streamer. But, HeckinDepression on Twitch, guys. Check him out. He does a lot of really mean Call of Duty plays. So if you're a fucking Dorito eating scumbag, go check out his his Twitch streams, you know?
Yep. Hey, I welcome all of the Dorito eating scumbags. If you,
My people.
if you are one, I
My
really
brother.
welcome them. If you can help afford the same addiction that you have for me, that'd be wonderful. But yeah, like, dude, I've been struggling with it for a long time. It
And
anymore. It's just like a thing. It's an annoying thing that happens and gets the best of me from time to time, and
so that was something I wanted to touch at a little bit there earlier, was how not every form of depression is the same, and even people with depression don't seem to understand that. And so it's a lot of like, oh, I've got depression too, and it's like, first of all, do you, or you just go through some bad spots sometime, you know?
right.
But like, especially for me, it's nothing triggers it for me. It's just a wave that comes over me, and it just shuts off a part of my brain that just allows me to be happy. And I'll be watching just like an absolutely hilarious video, and all of a sudden
And
my
not
brain will
laugh.
just shut off, and I can't laugh anymore. And
Or
yeah, it's
enjoying
just
the little things like
like Powerwash Simulator.
yeah. I mean, hell, we talked about this the other day. Like, I'll go through days, sometimes weeks, of just like nothing but good. Then
Right.
just randomly 1 minute later, it's like I really don't want to do anything. I don't want to see people. I don't want to talk to people. I don't even want to get out of bed.
Right.
And it just, I'm not gonna say it's debilitating because I can still get up to work. I can still get up and go to work, even though I'm like hating it, right?
Right.
But I still get up, do that every single day. And it
But I
just
understand
turns
what you
into
mean. It's a
monotony.
weight. It's a weight.
Yeah.
You're walking around with a ball and chain, whereas you should just be walking normally. And
Right.
it weighs you down throughout your normal life.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's
and it's
again, I
hard
don't
to
think it's
explain that to
debilitating.
people why you're just down that day, you know?
Right,
Or even that week, you know, however long that wave takes to pass, you know?
right. And I mean, I can joke about it as much as possible and try to get through it, but at the end of the day, I'm not gonna say it's something that I have to deal with, but it is something I have to deal with, right?
And
And
the way that I deal with my depression isn't necessarily the healthiest way of doing it, because it is 100% that. Is I just sit back and I say, this is just something I've got to write it out through. And 100% that's it. I eliminate the stressors that I can, and I just wait for it to pass over. And then when it's over, I try to reward myself for getting through it. And that's one of the biggest things. And some of the longer waves, you have to do extra measures for. You know,
Yep.
I mean, a big thing for me is like brushing my teeth, getting dressed, right? If I just do that every morning, no matter what, I can call it a productive day, because I know I'm not going to crawl back into bed while I'm wearing jeans, right? And I'm not going to
yep,
I'm not going to sit there and make the excuse of, oh, I'm going to eat lunch here in 30 minutes, so there's no reason to brush my teeth now. If I've already brushed them, I don't have to worry about that.
right.
And then it comes down to it later of like, oh, I was supposed to go and run groceries and get, you know, this and that, but, oh, I haven't brushed my teeth yet, I haven't showered yet, and
Yep.
yeah,
Because that one excuse will snowball into basically just making
into
you
shutting down the entire day.
Yep.
Yep. And that is such a huge issue for it. So that's why I try to be as productive as I can with the time.
Yeah.
I mentioned it, I don't deal with it in a healthy way, but a lot of what I do is just ignore it. And it's
That's
as long as
not-
I'm busy, as long as I'm production focused, as long as I never fucking stop, I don't think about it. And it's true, it
I will
helps and it
feel
works.
about it.
Yeah,
I will feel it when I die. And
exactly.
That's how it's gonna be.
Exactly.
Right.
And 100% when when I get into, like, when I broke my arm, or when I had my surgery on my shoulder,
There you go. Congrats.
which is my new way of warming up to vocal exercises, but surgery on my shoulder. Like, that's when it hits me. That's when I really start to feel the biggest pile of shit, is when I physically cannot do anything.
Right.
Is now it's like I don't have an excuse to put this off anymore. And that's when it hits me the worst.
It's like you're stuck with it, and you can't get away from it. You can't ignore it. You can't just, hey, I'm going out, maybe hit a baseball or something if you're into that.
Right.
Or, hey, I'm gonna go drive around, or, because for some people, hitting a baseball, going to the batting cages is their
Isn't
release,
that the
their
weirdest
therapy.
thing, Matt? That some people have, like, something that they can do to relieve stress? I don't get that.
And-
I don't understand a little bit. Like, I'm just constantly stressed out, and there's no answer to that solution.
See, that, I played baseball for 14 years.
Okay.
So going to
See?
the cages,
We're learning
hitting
things
some
about each other,
baseballs-
Matt. I didn't know that about you.
Well, here's something else you'll learn here in a little bit. But
Okay.
yeah, I played baseball for 14 years. That is my release, is to go to some cages and hit, just kind of relive. I'm not gonna say relive glory days, but like relive childhood, where
Yeah,
there wasn't as
I
much
gotcha.
to really worry about. But here's the part where you're gonna learn. Back before I was into cars, baseball was all I did. Then I got hurt. Freshman year of high school, slid into someone, I don't know, 2, maybe 3 times my size. Dislocated my shoulder, lodged a piece of cartilage between the ball and socket of my shoulder, and had to have surgery. And I could not play baseball anymore.
Really?
And that's kind of where all of the depression really started.
Yeah.
Like that was my first real taste of depression, was not being able to do the one thing that I really enjoyed doing.
Yeah, I had a similar injury, and not a lot of people know this about me, but I was in boxing, and it was kind of a weird thing because my parents, and we don't have to get too much into this aspect of it. My parents, they were scholarly people. They enjoyed the math and sciences, and they enjoyed the schoolwork, and like my mother loved school. That was her thing. She loved school, and they just didn't seem to like understand that I did not. And so a lot of things were like, oh, that's too dangerous. Like, you can't play football. It's too dangerous. You can't do boxing. It's too dangerous. And I didn't want to do anything with school. Like, it's kind of how I feel about work now, is that it's just something that I have to do, not something that I want to focus my life around.
Right.
And I ended up getting a really bad concussion that I actually just never got treated. And so I don't know if you ever see it, but like I always have Q-tips with me, right? And it's because like I get fluid that just like leaks through my ears from that concussion that never got treated. And there's nothing I can really do about it. It's just a leak. There's definitely things that I can do about it, but nothing that I want to do about it.
Right.
I can get the tube, right? And I'm just not that kind of person. So, not that there's anything wrong with that in case anybody's watching has the ear tube thing, but that's just the drain. But that would just be a permanent fixture on me. And it's not a big enough issue for me that I would want it. It's just I have to have Q-tips with me. But kind of besides the point is, after that concussion that I received, I started wincing every time somebody would go to hit me. And it wasn't anything big. It was just like my eyes would close, which is not something you can do in boxing. So I ended up having to give up on that because of that injury. And boxing was one of the few things that I really thoroughly enjoyed. And even to this day, it's really difficult for me to find anything that I truthfully enjoy. I mean, video games It's kind of a weird thing for me, Matt, in that how people feel about reading is how I feel about video games, in that it kind of takes me into a different direction, kind of gives me a different perspective on things. And it's not that
Mm,
I do enjoy video games, but it's nothing that I'm necessarily passionate about.
mm,
And so a lot of times for me, what these things are is just something I can do with my hands,
right.
you know. And that's why I like games that people hate. I love. It's like, oh, the gameplay is so shallow. And it's like, yeah, but Sea of Thieves is cool, man. It's really pretty. And it's like
Got pretty
I learned to
nice.
appreciate some of the most bare minimum things in a game, and I end up
Right.
loving it for that exact reason. I mean, pretty much the only reason I play Sea of Thieves is because of the water effects. And it's enough for me to actually beg people to play with me.
Oh man. See, I I struggle with Sea of Thieves. I'm not big into the open world stuff. I
Okay.
say that as I attempt to play Elden Ring and whatnot, but uh
That's a little bit different of a story.
yeah.
Elden Ring is its own breed of game.
Yeah. It's a monster, I should say.
Yeah.
Torture. Um and see, I sort of had the same issue when it came to baseball, right? Like I initially I didn't give up on it at first because I thought, oh yeah, I'll still have some time. I can get better.
Right.
I can get through therapy. I can get back into it. When you're when you stop playing for a while, you sort of lose your edge,
Right.
and you can't really progress physically when you're in a sling or
Right. There's just not much that you can do
yeah. And
to
at that
keep up
age
with
level,
your skill level. Yeah.
yeah, and at that age, it's people progress fast, like really fast, and it's, I,
I'm I mean, it doesn't work for everybody, and a point that I was going to get to here was that physical hobbies are great. They're vastly rewarding, but I think it's very important for everybody to have a backup in that in
yes,
case they have something like that where they tear their rotator cuff, or like my wife, she was huge into ballet and she dedicated pretty much her entire life to it, and then she got pregnant at a young age and ended up having to give up on just about everything that she had spent literal years working towards.
mm-hmm,
And so it's kind of like, well, where do you go from there when your whole life's plan was to be this ballet dancer, right? Well, the answer is nowhere, as it turns out.
mm,
You kind of just drift through life after you realize that your life's passion passed you by.
right,
When in actuality, I mean, one of the most motivational things that I remember reading about is that, like, J.K. Rowling didn't publish Harry Potter until she was 34, right?
mm,
And Oprah Winfrey got fired from her like major reporting job, which was supposed to like launch her career at the age of like 35. And all these people changed their life at 35.
mm-hmm,
And so it comes back to say that like you can always take a different path with your life. You just have to find a direction and run with it.
mm-hmm,
And I think
absolutely,
you're kind of dabbling with it here and now, right? Is that inspection? It's not a bad business to get into,
no,
and it's definitely something that you can really do for the rest of your life.
given the right company,
Right. But it does essentially boil down to, is this what I want to do with it? And
yeah,
what's the long-term thing here? Like climbing, rope access, right?
mm-hmm,
If I were to get injured, like if I had a substantial back injury, that would be pretty much it for me.
mm-hmm,
Like number one, I probably wouldn't even have a job at Team anymore.
right, which is terrifying,
Right. Especially considering that, you know, the job itself
right,
can lead to some pretty substantial injuries.
yeah,
Even accidentally.
if not even worse because of the places that we work.
And I was just about to bring that up. You can be the safest person in the world, but there
And the
can be a
refinery can
unit
still blow
upset
up.
and you get blasted with flames, and now
Hmm.
you're on disability. And that's it.
Yeah, or worse, or worse.
Yeah, exactly. Because you
Which,
can have your disability claims rejected.
it, or even worse than that, you could no longer breathe, I should say.
Yeah.
We're
Oh,
trying to
yeah. I
be
mean, that,
YouTube friendly. So
yeah. I mean, you're not wrong with that. Right?
cease to
Cease to exist.
yes.
I think I already made a joke about killing myself, so I wouldn't,
We'll just
wouldn't worry too much
bleep
about
that
that,
out.
Matt. Yeah.
We'll just bleep that out. But like, and that also leads right back into pay, right? Like,
Right.
why do I want to work somewhere where the
And I
threat
have
of
actually pitched
blowing
that
up?
idea to you so many times, Matt, and you haven't taken my hint yet.
Huh.
Penn Station Subs is hiring for $19 an hour.
I know.
Yeah,
I
and
know.
you don't have to come to work in a bomb factory every day at 5 o'clock in the
Yeah.
morning.
Or deal with radiation, or
Yeah, or all the other hazards that
yeah,
just
benzene,
make-
cancerous products. And
Matt. You blocked my sweep, dude.
my bad. I was trying to get behind the gutter.
Who
Look at
needs
that.
them?
I got a ding. Where's your ding?
I'm working on like a pretty big piece here, so there's my ding, Matt. There's
Yeah.
my ding.
Yeah. I still gotta worry about the roof because I didn't completely get it.
That's all right. I figured we could both jump up on the roof here at the end.
The majority of it's done. It's just all the nooks and crannies.
But yeah, I mean, getting back towards the mental health aspect of it is that when, and that's the big thing about like having control of your life for me. Oh, this wall. There's a big wall here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I started on it, but then I needed to come back.
But then I got distracted.
Yep.
Yeah. But just always having something else, you know. It's like I have my creative writing, I have my cooking, right? And I'm planning to start a food cart next year. Or at least get the wheels off the ground for it and have the cart built, you know. Is just in case anything happens, what am I going to do, right? Like I need to have something more than just this. And so I think it's really important for everybody, just from a hobby aspect, is to just have something that if your favorite thing is taken from you, what are you going to do, right? Because you can't always fight it. And sometimes you just have to give up on that hobby, you know, like you with your baseball or me with the boxing, right? Is what do you do next when you put
and-
all your eggs in one basket, right?
As depressing and sad as it sounds, you struggle to find something new.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
until then, you go through a lot of hobbies. You go through a lot of
That's-
trials and errors.
that's the
and-
people who are willing to try new things. I mean, that's the issue that my wife has a lot here, is that she's just not willing to try anything new. And we had a whole conversation about how I feel like she's just waiting for her to get a letter in the mail saying, hey, we saw one of your old recitals from 10 years ago, and we've decided that we want you to come and dance for our opera house for $90,000 a year,
Right.
which is not going to happen ever. And so I feel like she just kind of has sunk into this hole of waiting for something to happen. Something to fall
And-
into her lap. And I think a lot of people do that. I don't think that's
Yeah.
a mutually exclusive thing for just her.
No, it's definitely not, because sometimes I've done it too.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's the case. And when a lot of things are handed to someone, which granted I've been handed a lot of, by no means am I
Wildly
really
fortunate.
short
actually.
right. I mean, there are a lot less fortunate people, and I completely understand that. Like, I
Right.
don't take any of this for granted by any means, but it's, you get to a point to where it's like, you do one thing, you expect one outcome that you believe is going to show up, and then you end up sitting on that for months, years. It's, for some people, lifetimes, which is insane. But when you come to expect something just because you were once good at it, doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Right.
And that's the hard thing to come to terms with.
Yeah, you're 100% right with that. I mean, it's like we were talking about with like Apex and COD, right? Is that being a good player does not equate to being a professional player. And
By no
the
means.
vast difference in those two things is incredible. It's like being a good player just means that people like playing with you.
Right.
Being a professional player means that you are hitting.
You get paid for it.
Yeah, and it is incredibly different.
Oh, definitely.
And it was
Because
like, Kroll asked me the other day at his wedding as I was leaving. He was like, hey, so do you think I should post, you know, he's got like 3 videos that are done now. And he says, do you think I should post them now or should I wait on it? And I said, Kroll, it really doesn't fucking matter what you do
Right.
at all right now. It's like until you get north of even like 100 videos, there's just nothing that's really going to make a difference for you. It's like you
Right.
can do whatever you want right now, and that's the best aspect of being a small-time YouTuber, is that you can just do whatever you want, make it work, and it will. But until you get to a certain point, you're just not going to get views.
Which is
Which is hard. That's the
Yes.
hardest part of being a small YouTuber, and that's something that I learned the hard way, is that, and I talk about it a lot, is that for the first 6 months, 90% of my views were just me. And now it's to the point where I don't have to, I can just post a video, and I don't have to watch it myself. I do still to kind of bump up the numbers a little bit, but even when I dedicate myself to watching a lot of these videos over and over and over again, a lot of it is just, I might get 10 extra views from just me. Anyway, way off topic here, but dedication is my point here. Is being dedicated to the things is what's going to make you better and better, and you have to learn that you're not going to be great right off the bat.
no, definitely not. Granted, there are some that have that blessing.
But that is the exception, not
There
the
are
average.
yes, there are. It's so far and few between that it's not reliable enough to say that you can confidently walk
feasibly do
into
it.
something
Right.
and instantly be good at it.
And a lot of it
Which-
happens to be right place, right time.
Yep, absolutely. And finding that break.
Oh, speaking of finding
we-
that break,
are we
that's
done?
enough, Matt.
Are we done?
We're done.
Whew.